You see a row of rectangular patches, one here, 1, 2, 3 in a row. They all replaced old branches. Some very nice spot is actually here, where you still see the moss caulking in the seam, 600 years old.
One of the questions that we're looking at in the timber project is to try and examine what the mechanism, what the reason is for the growth in the trade of timber that starts really in Northern Europe from around 1500. Is it because in some places there is actually experienced a shortage in the timber resource? So we're looking at the material evidence to try and assess what the quality of the timber is locally that has been used, or the properties of the timber, to try and see if we can get an insight into the state of the local resource and whether really we can see that it was a dwindling resource. And so the archaeologist on the project, Mike Belasus, is looking into some of these questions.
What's behind me here is the Bremer Kogge, and it is built in the last quarter of the 14th century. And the interesting thing about that ship is the quality of the wood. It is the opposite from extraordinary good timber. It is catastrophical timber, so to say. What I do is actually an assessment. One bad plank doesn't make a bad ship. So I have to have proper preserved ships or better preserved ships to have material to compare with. The cracks would usually follow the fiber of the plank, but that's not what it's doing here. It's almost going diagonally. Why it's doing that can have different reasons. It can be that the tree had a spiral growth, and you cut all the fibers, that makes all your timbers crack diagonally, like it is the case in many planks in this ship here. You use the lesser quality timber because it's cheaper and you don't have to import. You just take your own timber and you save so much money. You don't have to pay the transport, you don't have to pay the acquisition of the timber, all these things you don't have to do. You just take the timber that you have in town. If it's still okay with you and you earn money with that, and you do not have much money in your pockets, then it's fine. There are so many reasons that goes into the construction of such a complex thing as a wooden ship that there must be many different reasons in different regions why to import or why not to import timber. And most of the time in that period it will be economic. The question is to ask, what kind of economic reason could that happen? The interesting thing about all these branches and cracks and whatever we see is that we get an idea of the anatomy of the trees. And from that, again, we can say where these trees grew. Like straight, long trees are growing in a dense population, like in the depth of the forest, where they do not get so much light and they want to reach the light. The trees that we have here with all these branches and patches everywhere, they are growing in a rather not so dense population, so they have light from everywhere and they produce branches. They do not get that tall usually. What we can say currently about the population of trees where these planks are made from is that it was a rather undense population of trees that were actually quite used for firewood, for pig herding, for the acorns and so on. So this is not the usual forest where you want to have your building timber from. The great thing is in such a project like the Timber project that I am not alone. We can cross-check things. We can say, well, the archaeologists say, oh, well, I think it's like this and this, and then the dendrochronologist comes back to me and says, aha, but you missed that and that fact, and therefore it cannot be. So we as archaeologists and historians, and all what we are, we can become more and more like investigators on a crime scene, where we have to back up our evidence.